Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're having a really good time. My name is Timi Odueso, and I am a reporter at TechCabal. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll be talking about how social media is shaping e-commerce on the continent. Increasingly, what we've seen over the past couple of years is that more people are buying and selling on social media. You want to order a pizza, you go to Instagram, find out who the best pizza maker is, and you can get your order in the next couple of minutes. You want to order shoes, people are going to Twitter to look for who is buying and who is selling these products. So my co-panelists and I, over the next couple of 30 minutes, we're going to talk about how social media is shaping commerce. Please join me in welcoming our guest. First off, we have Joshua Chibueze, the co-founder and CMO of Piggyvest. We also have Brian Mogeni, who is the co-founder and CEO of Wowzi. And finally, there's Kelvin Umechukwu, who is the co-founder and CEO of Bumpa. Thank you very much. All right, over the course of the conversation, if you have any questions for any of our guests, please go to slido.com and enter TCFOC 2022 to drop any questions you have for any of our guests. And I'm going to drop right in with Kelvin. Kelvin, what do you think the role of social media is in helping merchants increase their revenue?
Okay, can you hear me? All right. Hi everyone. Kelvin Umechukwu here. So, I think one thing that we've seen, and interestingly, in a report I was just reading by Accenture, social commerce has basically is a major part of how business owners today are driving revenue. And according to the report, it says that there's going to be 3 times more revenue generated from social commerce than traditional commerce. So it's going to more than double it from $492 billion in 2021 to about $1.2 trillion in 2025. And this can easily get to $6 trillion by 2030. And we've seen in the behavior of consumers today, and I think you just mentioned it here, when customers will want to purchase something today, they would most likely go to social media. Yes, it's basically becoming like an inherent part of how a consumer thinks. Now, I want to go to social media, I want to go to Instagram or WhatsApp to find the best person selling this thing, and I want to reach out to the person, before I make that purchase. There's now more. People are looking for that personal touch now, before they buy a particular item. And maybe if I ask everyone here now, how many times you've used social media today, today, at least once, I'm sure 90% of us have used it. So it means that we've basically captured, social media today have basically captured our attention. And it's just an easy case of merchants wanting to be where the customers are, and so it has and will continue being a big driver of revenue for businesses, including small businesses owners, not just in Nigeria, but, across Africa and the world.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm going to go to Brian now. Now, Kelvin has spoken about how, of course, there's the chance for revenue increase for merchants and everything. But social commerce is largely based on internet and smartphone penetration, which on the continent is as low as 28% in some areas and as high as 88% in others. So how scalable is social commerce?
Thanks, Timi. I think you can hear me. Perfect. So yeah, great question. And first of all, it's a pleasure to be here with everybody. At Wowzi, we believe in community, so cheers for TechCabal. So yeah, is social commerce scalable in Africa? If you look at how we've transacted from day, it's through community, it's through trust. That underlining factor has always been there before even the internet. And if you look at the industry in itself, this is more than $1 trillion industry. That's what's been captured. But the business that happens between cousins, families, people who work together, that's not captured. So the market in itself is massive. And then in terms of if you look at the inputs that drive social commerce. There's a massive conversion in innovation around, manufacturing, fulfillment, payments, as you've mentioned it, and access to the internet more and more. We see these as just necessary inputs that to really scale this out, we need to add, a revolutionary marketplace technology just to bring this together. So it's definitely scalable, and I think this is just the beginning. It's just the beginning. Yeah.
Okay, I'm also looking forward to the scalability of that. And Joshua, let's come to you right now. You've been building Piggyvest since 2016, and I read one of your interviews where you said, social media also helped push the growth of Piggyvest. So do you think more apps should be looking to collaborate with social apps in order to help their users and their merchants?
Yes. So social media was a very big part of how we were able to grow our business since 2016. It was very important for us to put our business there because we're targeting young people who primarily will go to social media to look for anything. But speaking to how apps can collaborate with social commerce platforms, I think we're beginning to see a lot of those things happen. So for instance, I know Bumpa recently announced their Meta collaboration. I think we're going to see more of that. I think social media on its own cannot scale social commerce. There's still a lot of factors, there are a lot of things that come into play. There's payments, there's access to markets, there's fulfillment. So for instance, we're building Pocket App, and Pocket App is a social commerce and payments app. But we can't do it alone, right? We're in constant communication with several partners, fulfillment partners, payment partners, and people who can give our customers more visibility. So yes, there will be a lot more collaborations. Certain platforms will focus on the things that they're very good at. So for instance, we know we're going at a data play. We've built a community for over 6 years, and we understand their needs. A large percentage of them, sell something. I would say about 60% of Piggyvest users sell something online, right? So in looking to satisfy their needs, we need to understand all the different aspects of how they need to survive and make more revenue. So yes, we're exploring collaborations, and it's very much needed.
So I imagine that with the recent launch of Pocket App, there are some lessons from building Piggyvest that you're going to apply. So what lessons from building Piggyvest using social commerce are you going to apply to Pocket App? And can other apps or startups that are starting out, what lessons can they learn from you?
Okay, so when we started out with Piggyvest, we understood that a lot of people required education. Right? People didn't know how to save. So Piggyvest is a platform that essentially allows you plan your finances. So some of the lessons we're drawing out from there is a lot of people online are selling online, but they don't necessarily know how to improve their sales or how to do more to get more customers. So we're going to be heavy on the education part, especially for business owners. People don't necessarily know how to present themselves online. People don't know how to create content. You might be you might know how to make cake, for instance, but you don't know how to sell your cake. And that's where it's lacking, right? Because there's competition. There's 1,000 people selling cake on Instagram. So how do you differentiate yourself from the next person, right? So we're going to be very heavy on the education part. How can you differentiate yourself? How can you better position yourself for this digital wave that's happening, right? Yeah, so.
Okay. So Joshua talked about education, and quite a bit of what Wowzi does, Brian, is educating. Now, what differentiates Wowzi from other influencer, advertising, and marketing platforms?
Thanks, Timi. So Wowzi is a platform that makes it easy. As Joshua has mentioned, you can make the best cake, but you can't sell the cake. So Wowzi enables small businesses, brands, marketing agencies to generate demand through a community of creators. As we speak today, we actually have a great starter pack deal. So for Wowzi, if people want to generate demand, you can...
We're going to charge you like Ibrahim.
You can quickly get a good deal then, generate demand. But if you look at the platform in itself, it's how do we make it easy? So payments is something that we've solved. All the creators on Wowzi get paid within 7 days on time. For brands, for the SME, you don't have to go through the contractual, tedious process. All our creators have been verified. We've got over 100,000 creators on the platform. Those are some of the things. How do we make it easier for creators by working in the background and helping them level up, as Joshua has mentioned. Those are some of the key things that we do. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned difficulties, and I want to throw it to Kelvin because he and Bumpa, they just solved a pretty huge hurdle. They jumped through. They recently announced a partnership with Meta that integrates their platform and allows people to start conversations on Meta, on Bumpa. And what difficulties did you see that pushed you to actually move for this partnership? What hurdles did you have to pass through?
So for the difficulties that we saw, so for instance, I think one of the key things that we started seeing last year when we started was that 40% of the orders on Bumpa, that was recorded on Bumpa were basically from Instagram and WhatsApp only, and to today, I was just looking at the data yesterday and I discovered, this number still, that percentage is still consistent till today, and that's basically, it means that there's a lot of businesses happening in, on these social media platforms, and as Joshua mentioned, it's difficult to basically try to, to organize your commerce data on Instagram. Instagram is not necessarily built for that, so also other platforms, other social media platforms. So this is one thing that we saw, in terms of difficulty, like how do we start helping businesses be able to organize their sales, their customer details, sell better, with just, those social media tools. So as more and more businesses, are looking to sell, using multi-channel approach, so selling via multiple channels, these simple things now become super difficult. How do you manage and sync your inventory across all of the platforms? There are still marketplaces, you're selling in your physical store, you're selling on Instagram, WhatsApp, like there are so many of those tiny things that you'll probably not think about when you're just selling on your physical store. You have to worry about that. You want to sell via a website or via Pocket, for instance. So inventory. How do you organize your customer data? How do you start using it? To increase your sales. Marketing, automations. All of those things are things that we are now trying to focus on, helping these business owners. Organize their sales, but also increase their sales generally. In terms of the hurdles that we have faced, in building this, so I would say building it is not necessarily, we're a tech company, so we would definitely build tech. But I would say in terms of the adoption, for instance, as Joshua said, there's a lot of education that is still required, on the continent concerning things like this, and that's because there have not necessarily been things like this in the past. When we meet a merchant today and say, you can now receive your Instagram messages on Bumpa, it's like, why? There's a lot of that, because now they have not necessarily done something like that before, because the ease of how you would do it in Bumpa. So literally your inventory is entirely available to you while you are chatting with a customer. You can record a sale, you can share invoices, request for payments right while you are chatting with the customer. You can see all the records of that customer's sales, all the things that they have purchased from you right while chatting with the customer. That has not necessarily been built before. So there's a lot of education that is required, for these business owners to even start seeing, some of the things that, we have actually been, we have built for them. Yes, I would say that is like the major thing. And I think like the other part, because we are also, social commerce is still, a little bit early on the continent, I think that there's still a lot of hurdles to be crossed around monetization. What we're seeing now, even what we are actually doing is that we're experimenting across, different models. We have the Shopify model. Bumpa is sort of like a Shopify for Africa, and you have the Shopify model where it's a SaaS. You're supposed to pay a subscription fee, and for that, there's still the thing where business owners are not necessarily used to that. Although it's changing because now you're seeing them pay for platforms like Netflix, and the like. So they're now a little bit open to it, and we're seeing that grow. But figuring that out, for for the larger markets would be, would be interesting things for many of us. There's the GG model, which is like, how do I monetize visibility? I want, for me to show your products to a lot of people, I'm going to charge you for that, but everybody can use it for free. There's the fintech model where, as your payment, as you transact, I'm going to get a charge. So there's so many of those, and, I've seen, even pockets, use different models. So I think that's like one of the hurdles that, we're still learning and we're still, going to cross over time.
Okay, so you mentioned something about adoption, and I'm going to throw it to Joshua. But right before I do, just a reminder that if you have questions for any of our guests on how social media is shaping commerce, please go to www.slido.com and type in TCFOC 2022. Now, Joshua, Kelvin just spoke about adoption and the problems of adoption. And I remember when you were talking about starting Piggyvest also, you spoke that for the first year, one of the problems you had was adoption. You had 400 users, I believe, in 2016 in your first year.
Yeah.
And it was difficult for people to actually want to come to the app because they didn't trust and know you. And now you have millions of users. You are saving people, 4 million users. You're saving people a lot of money. You're helping people buy things. How did you get them to trust you? How did you get them to actually adopt your method of social, or did social media play any role in that?
At Piggy Tech, I would say, we are very customer focused. Being customer focused is putting yourself in the customer's shoes. So we are first users of the product even before the customers, right? So whatever is not good for us is not good for the customer. So I'm a user of Piggyvest. I use Piggyvest to save my money, right? So when we're building, we're always thinking about the customer, right? And when you think about the customer, you understand their needs and you're very honest about what the customer needs, then it would help in your product development. There's a lot that needs to happen before, I'll say social commerce scales. First, there's a trust barrier. It's very difficult for a random person to meet another random person on the internet and pay them, for instance. So there's still that. You can pay someone online or on Instagram and they could block you and your money is gone. And you literally have no trace and you have nobody to report to. So I'd say commerce is still broken in that. So there needs to be a lot of things done to fix that trust gap. And that's one of the things we're doing with Pocket App. One of the things we focused is fixing that trust. So we've added escrow to our payment services. So if you want to buy strawberries from someone in Jos, for instance, you can pay the person without any fear or thinking that they can run away, because when you pay the person doesn't get the funds until they release the goods to you, right? So adoption will increase, but there's some things that needs to be fixed over time. Nigeria still has a logistics nightmare. Everyone is still trying to solve it. There's been different approaches. But yes, that also needs to be fixed to drive adoption.
Okay, Brian, what about you? I imagine that there are not a lot of influencer marketing platforms. How are you driving adoption, and how does social media play a part in that?
Yeah. So primarily, we grow through our users. We call it Wowzi on Wowzi. So it's the community in itself that we leverage to educate, peer-to-peer learning, and that's how we're driving adoption for our business. Using creators to educate creators, to onboard creators, and eventually drive transactions as well.
All right, we're going to take some questions from the audience now. Okay. Could we please go to Slido and see what we have? Okay. So let's take the one from Titilayo first. Social media is helping intra-country commerce. How about inter-African trade? Why can't I easily buy things from Kenya, Ghana, like Amazon or even China? Kelvin, do you want to take that?
Why can't I easily buy things from Kenya and Ghana? Oh, okay. So I think that, for for Bumpa, and I can speak for Bumpa, it's like there's still a lot, that we're trying to build, and for us to even begin to make our solution available to other countries, it would probably take some time, not a lot of time, but some time, and I'm sure most platforms would basically want to build in-house first, for their current markets, before they start scaling. But one thing is sure, once a Bumper merchant, is available in Kenya, a customer here in Nigeria, in any remote part of Nigeria, will be able to purchase, and through the help of partners, logistics partner, will be able to move that product to that customer. So the trade, is broken, and I don't think like it would be fixed overnight. But I feel like with more platforms like what we are building, with even with Pocket, expanding, all of those things will become super easy over time.
And I think that's a logistics problem. So it's also more of a logistics problem. So Titilayo, maybe let's move to Abraham's session. Can we go back to Slido so that we can have some more questions? What is the future of commerce across borders in serving? What is the future of social commerce across borders in serving both merchants and consumers with respect to data protection? Very good question. Let me throw this to Brian.
Thanks, Timi. So I think in terms of data protection, this is an area the world is moving to the right direction day by day. And when we look at social commerce, a few use cases have been described. For example, you will go on Instagram, I like that hat, send me 10,000 naira. Where users are sharing their data very publicly. Another thing that you do, once you've sent the guy the money, you might forward them. They might ask you to forward the transaction code. Again, very, very, very public information. So, we see platforms, such as ourselves, Wowzi, Pocket Data, Bumpa, enabling that, where you can actually control as the merchant how your data is shared because it's centralized, and at the same time for users where their point of purchase is, there's the ability now to add that layer. So that's the direction that we see that going. Yeah.
Joshua, what about you? What lies in the future for social commerce in respect to data protection?
So I think again there's a lot that needs to go into that. Customers, or rather vendors or merchants, don't even have enough knowledge about data protection to start with, right? Most of them just acquire customers from social media. There is no way to follow up. There's no retention. There's nothing. Just wait for the next new customer to come on board. So I think again, it would take it would take all of us, right, to try to teach, right, these vendors or the sellers on how they can protect their customers' information, how they can use that to even grow their sales and different things. So yes, there is a lot, but it will take a lot of us to teach them what to do.
Okay, let's take one final question from Slido. I like this question by Sheio. Are there any trends in how social media is being used for social commerce across generational markets in Africa, i.e. TikTok versus Instagram, Gen Z versus millennials? Who wants to take that? Kelvin?
I can start. Definitely, I think there's a lot of trends that we're currently seeing, and it's a little bit sad that we don't necessarily control a lot of the social commerce platforms, and maybe Pocket's going to change that because now that is home built. So when you think about, say for instance, using Instagram, WhatsApp, there are not a lot of insights that we have, but there are still some things that we've been able to learn. For instance, for people under the age of 30, 35, we've seen that at least, or more than 50% of them have purchased something from social media, at least once. And we're seeing that tend towards more Instagram, Instagram and WhatsApp than even TikTok, for instance. In TikTok here on the continent is still largely, just for entertainment purposes. We've not necessarily started seeing that push, that move, as how you see Instagram today. People don't go to TikTok for the mere purpose of, I want to buy a product. You can see something I like, you like it and go and look for it, but right now, Instagram is still that place because, they basically, tweaked a lot of things, helped with, the hashtags, things that you can help you, find products and also go and also message the customer and then, and complete that entire purchase on that social media platform, which is some of the things that, Bumpa is making possible. The fact that it's a user today or a customer reaching out to a merchant can actually close the entire sale from saying the first hi, hello, I want to purchase this thing, to, oh, I'm done, I've sent the money, or even just building that long-term relationship, with the customer. That's now possible, with Bumper. So yes, we are seeing some trends, and there's still a lot to learn. We even I reached out to person upstairs, and they've been able to gather a few data around this, and I think there's still a lot of work in gathering a lot of data around, how social media is being used. We're seeing a lot, just with our own platform, but there's still a lot out there.
Okay, so let's go to Brian. Brian, trends you're seeing. I mean, you own an influencer marketing platform, so surely you deal with trends. What trends are you seeing for the future of social commerce?
There's one funny trend I've seen, which is my mom, who's 64, joining TikTok and onboarding her sisters. That's a very interesting trend I've seen from a 7-year-old to a 65-year-old on TikTok. So the adoption there is extremely high. Generally, from the position that we sit, TikTok is a platform, as Kelvin has mentioned, it's very entertainment driven. Whereas when you're on Instagram, that's where we see a lot of creativity. We have creators on the platform who, I believe, and I've told them, some of you guys will be on Hollywood very soon, because what people can do with a bunch of their friends and you see the final output on Instagram, it's extremely creative. So in terms of those trends, I think the creativity is more aligned towards the Instagram end, and TikTok, very snappy, entertaining experiences. Yeah.
All right, thank you, everyone. Unfortunately, this is all the time we have, but just before we go back to building and shaping with our founders, I'd like to ask everyone to give a 30-second view on what you think the future of social commerce looks like. So let's start with Joshua.
Okay. So I think what's going to start to happen eventually is businesses are going to look for more interesting ways to cut their cost of sales. There is no equality in that you want to sell something, you go on Instagram, the next person is spending, 100,000 naira on ads every single week, for instance. But you don't have that kind of money, so how do you put yourself forward, right? So I think people are going to look for more cost-effective means to run their businesses. People are going to try to understand their customers better. So again, some of the things we're preaching is, social media cannot do everything, right? Yes, you can mostly use social media for lead generation, but how then do you convert that lead generation into customers and continuous paying customers? And that's what all of these platforms exist to solve, right? Everyone cannot build their own tech platform, right? Not everyone has the kind of resources to do that. So someone needs to build for, I'll say, micro businesses who cannot necessarily afford to build these platforms to keep their customers and continue selling to them. So we're going to see a lot more adoption of social commerce apps combined with their social media to increase sales. So, yeah.
All right, Brian?
Yes, I think as we will look forward to next year, we primarily believe creators, that's the next generation of small and medium-sized businesses across Africa. There's a median age of 20. Everybody has a phone and can create. So we see, commerce being layered behind that creativity. At the same time, these are really tough economic times. They will not change tomorrow. And with social commerce, the real concept and core glue to this is its community. So we see the more group deals being purchased. So it's not just social commerce happening on social sites, but going beyond that, going offline, where friends, family, acquaintances can start to transact together with new tech-enabled experiences, and that's soaring higher and higher. Yeah.
All right. Finally, Kevin.
Yeah. So I think, as Joshua mentioned, there's going to be a lot of adoption and people looking for a way to cut costs. One of the things that we started seeing is that we are seeing small business owners actually want to build out their own community, and in that way they're able to retain more and more customers. But beyond that, social commerce platforms will continue to exist just to provide a lot more ease. So there should be that ease, going forward. There will be automation platforms built for automation, platforms built for discovery. Some platforms that we're going to see even more platforms like ours, come up, and they will probably start, niching on the kind of product or innovation that is being built around, social commerce, for marketing, automation, retention, verification. There's so many things that can be built here, and I think that it's just a starting point for most of us, and I think the sky is the limit.
Okay. Thank you so much all. Thank you everyone for your wonderful insights, especially to our guests. It seems like there's a lot in store for the future of social commerce on the continent, and we're really looking forward to that. To everyone, thank you for joining us on this panel session. Our next panel is going to talk about the informal economy. But right before we get into that, we're going to have a short 5-minute break. So get up, stretch your legs, have a cup of coffee, talk to a friend, just stretch, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thanks, everyone.